After landing in Estonia, we made our way to our hotel, a greatly located one right next to the train station and a 5-minute walk to Old Town. After we made our way to Tallinn's Old Town, a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's one of the best preserves that date back to the 13th century. It's not an exaggeration to say that this place feels lifted from a fairy tale, as every single building around there had super nice contrasts and pastel colors, which I love. But beneath the spires and the medieval charm, it's a city that's been shaped by centuries of conquest, trade, and resilience. According to the museum that we went to, for over 800 years, Tallinn's port has been its beating heart. Its location on the Gulf of Finland made it a vital node in the Hanseatic League, a powerful network of merchant cities that dominated trade across northern Europe during the Middle Ages. Back then, Tallinn was known as the Rival, and its warehouse was stacked with goods: salt from Portugal, furs from Russia, grain, wax, honey, fabrics, anything. But the city's strategic value made it a target. Over the centuries, Tallinn was ruled by the Danes, Swedes, Russians, and even briefly by the Germans. Each left their mark, and the port was always central. When Peter the Great expanded the Russian Empire reached towards the Baltic, securing Tallinn's harbor was a key move. During the Soviet era, the port served military and industrial functions, and civilians' access was limited. Today, the Port of Tallinn is one of the largest and busiest on the Baltic Sea. It welcomes millions of passengers each year and handles a huge volume of cargo. The port has been revitalized with modern terminals, cafes, and walking paths. It's no longer just a place of transit, it's part of the city experience. It's incredible to think that the same waters that once carried medieval traders and imperial warships now bring curious travelers like me, still arriving with open eyes, just with suitcases instead of spices. For dinner, we went to Raderskivu 16, one of those rare places that balances incredible food with genuine warmth. To our luck, we were able to get a table without a reservation. The food was amazing. The portion size were small, so I was a little bit skeptical, but I'm so filled. There's a lot of food there. We got the spinach risotto. I think that the risotto's part could be cooked a little bit longer because it was a little bit hard, but all of the flavors blended really naturally together with all the pesto, the mushrooms, and the arroz. And then we got this beef dish. I forget what it's called top of my head, but that had every mixed signal of flavors, where it was sweet, it was savory, it was sour, and the beef on it was super tender. Overall, highly recommend going. Afterwards, we continued to walk around the pastel buildings and eventually made our way back to the main plaza where we people watched. We even were able to visit another museum. Then we took the long way back, walking through the parks that curved around the city walls. Day 2 started with a guided tour to learn more into the Tallinn's history. We started at Tapia Hill, which quite literally is the political and symbolic high ground of Estonia. Legend says that the hill was formed by a mythological giantess piling stones in mourning of her husband. But beyond folklore, Tapia's always represented power. At the top sits the castle, which has been a fortress since the 9th century. Over the centuries, it has been home to Danish kings, German knights, Swedish governors, Russian scars, and now Estonia's modern parliament. It's a rare example of a historic stronghold that still is used for governance today. What's fascinating to me is how the building itself reflects the country's journey. A medieval fortress turned 18th century palace, now a working state of democracy for one of Europe's most digitally advanced nations. Right across from the castle was Alexander Nevsky's Cathedral, built in the 1900s during the Russian Empire. It was part of a wider effort to russify the Baltic provinces and its construction here in Topia. Right in front of Estonia's Germanic Danish legacy was designed to send a clear message, a show of Orthodox imperial presence on Estonian soil. The cathedral itself is striking, with its ornate Russian Orthodox design, elaborate mosaics, and a constant soft sense of incense, but for Estonians, it's always had a complicated pace in the national story. It's a beautiful building, but also a symbol of foreign domination. It's a reminder of how culture and power have long intersected here. Just a short walk away is the Dome Church, which is also known as St. Mary's Cathedral. It is one of the oldest churches in Tallinn, dating back to the 13th century, and unlike the others, is filled with coats of arms and memorials from noble Baltic German families. We then visited St. Nicholas's Church, which today functions as a museum of ecclesiastical art. The church was originally built in the 13th century by German merchants, but it was badly damaged during Soviet bombings during World War II. It's since been restored and now houses the most iconic pieces of medieval art. It's fascinating work and a reminder from the Middle Ages that death unites everyone from peasant to king. After a morning full of history, we stepped outside Old Town walls to see what modern-day Tallinn looks like. One of the things I really appreciate about this city is how compact it is. Within 10 minutes, we can go from medieval stone walls to modern day life, so we wandered to explore. Our first stop on the list was one of Tallinn's local markets, where we had a chance to grab some water, a quick snack, and catch a glimpse of everyday rhythm and how people here live their life. From there, we wandered through a few of the public parks, and Tallinn really values its green spaces. Thoughtful landscapes, sculptures, and places to just breathe. It's peaceful, well kept, and filled with locals enjoying a late afternoon sun. After exploring outside the walls, we made our way back inside Old Town. Everything here looks softer. Golden hour light is on pastel walls, long shadows over cobblestones, and that bittersweet sense of trip winding down. It's one of those cities that slows you down without asking, and you just want to walk a little bit slower, a little bit longer, and memorize how the lights hit the rooftops. We spent our last fall evening here soaking up every little detail, because as much as Tallinn is shaped by its history, it's also alive in its presence. In the rhythm of the market, in the design of the parks, in the way of the old and the new coexist without competing. Tomorrow we head east, but for now, we're just letting Tallinn linger a little bit longer. Overall, Tallinn was very cute. All of the pastel buildings I love. Had pretty good food, although I'm not really sure what their cuisine is, because every single restaurant we've been to is a little bit of this, a little bit of that, of like several different countries' cuisines all together. One other thing, the daylight hours, there's like 20 hours of daylight, so it's like almost 11 p.m. and it's still super bright out. It's also really nice because nobody's out here. Like everywhere we walked to today, there's like barely anyone there. So either it's super small or like less people. But they did say that like last week and the whole month prior, there were so many cruise ships that came on, so the streets were like infiltrated with people. So I guess we came at a good time. Before leaving Tallinn, we stopped at a bakery to pick up some goods. Just an hour and a half away, we made our way to Lahima National Park, which is Estonia's largest and oldest national park, established in 1971. Back when the country was still under Soviet control, and at this time it was the very first protected area of its kind in the entire USSR, created to conserve not just the nature but traditional Estonian rural life. Here you'll find centuries-old pine forests, bog trails that feel ancient, and quiet beaches where the Baltic Sea meets the land in slow, windswept waves. In Estonian, Lama state means land of the bays, and the coastline here feels endless. In the middle of the wilderness stands Palms Manor, an estate dating back to the 18th century. It was once a grand home of the von der Bruggen family, a Baltic German noble who controlled much of Estonia for centuries under both the Swedish and Russian rule. The manor is now a museum that offers a glimpse into the life under the Russian Empire, from lavish dining rooms to horse-drawn carriages and even bathhouse that feels like it was airlifted from a Russian novel. From there, we stopped at a tiny coastal fishing village that's over 400 years old to have lunch. And this is where I learned what Estonia food is, because yesterday I did not know. And I even swung on a Estonia swing, which is very different than a Western swing. After a hearty lunch in the countryside, we made our way to Tartu. Tartu is Estonia's second largest city, and you feel the shift immediately due to its university town, intellectual at its core, with a younger and more laid back energy than Tallinn. It's also the oldest city in the Baltics with over 1,000 years of history, yet it feels quite modern. Here we were joined a short tour guide throughout the city center, which included the town hall, the sculptures, Tomb Hill, and the ruins of old cathedral that sits beside the university halls. Tartu blends old and new differently than Tallinn, which is more introspective, more academic, but no less charming. After the tour of Tartu, we then made it back to the Sunday Center where every corner we turned was super lively and everybody was out and about. We then made a stroll in the botanical garden before making our way to dinner and walking to Aldi afterwards to pick up some baked goods. Day three. We went to the first and the oldest national park here, which is just a bunch of like moss area. And then we then took a 2-hour bus ride to Tartu, which is where the second largest city in Estonia is. This city is very poppin'. Everybody was like out and about, and it's less touristy as well. So we did what any local would do: go to Aldi, son. And then gonna take a good rest, and then tomorrow we're gonna make our way to Riga in Latvia. Bye! The next morning we got some breakfast. Also, my sister and I bought this soy milk because I wanted to make matcha. And the hotel breakfast area also had a container of that milk. And I was so afraid that they thought I was stealing their milk. But we eventually finished the milk and nobody said anything. So we made our way to the market to pick up some super duper delicious juicy berries because it's apparently berry season. Every stall here had the most vibrant strawberries and blueberries, raspberries, lingonberries, any berry you can imagine before we made our way across the border.